Good evening, and welcome back to the Pastor Study in this dark and stormy night in Arkansas. You may very well hear the thunder in the background tonight. You know, aside from storms and tornadoes and golf ball size hail that they're saying we might get tonight, the world can be a very scary place. It doesn't take very long in the news media today to set you off if you're not careful. Just today, a manager working for Hobby Lobby was working in the warehouse in Oklahoma City. One of his employees came up and shot him, killed him. Shortly after that, my phone blew up when I saw that a cop in Chicago had been killed in the line of duty, something that's happening more and more frequently. On one hand, people tell us to save our guns, we're going to need them. And on the other hand, people are saying, turn all your guns in. If nobody has guns, nobody can get hurt. We've got the Congressional Budget Office telling us that if Congress doesn't do something about the debt soon, our nation's going to be in serious financial trouble. And we've got others saying, spend more money, whether we have it or not. It kind of makes your head spin if you're not careful. King David, lived in a very dangerous time. But he had a really neat perspective. Psalm 27 kind of details some of that. In verse 1, he says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Now, we could say, David, you're the king. You live in a castle. You've got an army surrounding you. But you see, David had enemies who were after his life as well. He says, when evil men advance against me, they seek to devour my flesh. My enemies, my foes attack me. Even though an army besieged me. These were all events that he had experienced. Nothing new to David. It was part of his life. He said, even though a war break out against me. Kind of sounds like our world today. How bad is it going to get with Ukraine? Are we going to have problems with Taiwan? Again, the news cycles could certainly leave your head buzzing. David said, even if there's a war breaks out, I'm going to be confident. In fact, listen to where David puts his focus. One thing I ask of the Lord, and this is what I seek. In other words, he's saying, this is where I'm putting my focus. This is where I'm going to spend my time. That I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. To gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Why? He goes on to say, for in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe. In other words, David understood that if he put his priorities right, then when things got bad, and David's saying they will get bad, at least they did in his life, and certainly our lives can bear that out. In fact, before David was done, he saw one of his sons rape one of his daughters, the young man's stepsister, by different mothers. He saw another son attempt to overthrow him as king, and for a while he was out of the castle and running for his life. So David did not necessarily have an easy life as king. He says, if I do those things, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He'll hide me in the shelter of his tabernacle and set me high upon a rock. And then my head will be exalted upon the enemies who surround me. At his tabernacle, I will make music. And I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. All of this while stuff is going on in his life. All of this while enemies surround him and people make war against him. David said, I'm going to keep my focus. I'm going to keep my priorities straight. And I'm going to continue to worship God. He goes on to say, my heart says to me, seek his face. Seek his face. You see, when we have our heart right, even when these other things, other issues of life come crashing down on us, our heart will be in the right place. That will keep us focused, even when the world will try to destroy that focus, and it certainly will. David goes on to say, even though my mother and my father might even forsake me. I know that's bad English, but that's the way it came out. That's about as bad as it gets. He said, I still need you, Lord, to teach me your way. Why? Because of my oppressors. Those who are against me are going to try to pull me aside. They're going to try to focus me the wrong way. The enemy is not only our accuser, he seeks to destroy us. In fact, New Testament says he seeks to devour us. And then David says this, I am still confident of this. Despite all the stuff happening in my life, I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. That is, I don't have to wait for heaven. I'll see God's goodness right where I am today. And then he gives us some advice as he closes out. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. And wait for the Lord. Good advice in these days of chaos. In days where I suspect the chaos is not going to get any less anytime soon. We can find our refuge, not in the things of man, not in the systems of the world, not even in our gun cabinets. We can find our sustenance. We can find our protection in God's grace. And that's where we need to be, seeking his face, as David said, and worshiping in the midst of crisis. And I'll leave you with that thought. The thunder's swirling in the background. And I look forward to seeing you next week back in the Pastor Study.